Hello, I thought I'd show you today what I do to hang my pieces. I've had a couple questions about it, and the truth is there's lots of different ways that you can accomplish this, and I normally have smaller pieces that I want to hang on the wall. So this one here, I've sewn a piece of felt on the back, that's my label, and there's a piece of wood in a channel that I've stitched, and there's some wire. So this piece hangs very easily. The wire's not going to bend unless I purposely bend it. And the piece of wood that's in here is keeping it straight. In some pieces, depending on the heaviness of what's on them, they will bend if they're just, most of mine won't, but if they're just hung maybe from the edges. So sometimes you want a piece of wood in there. This is such a small piece that I've just used a chopstick. And this isn't going to shift too much because there's only small openings here. So that's how I accomplished this one. Very similar in this piece, that's a little bit larger, and it's a little heavier because of all these buttons that are on here. So again, I wanted a piece of wood. So when I was finished, I sewed this piece of fabric on the back, and it has a small channel that also has a chopstick. This is a piece of hemp string, and so it doesn't slip off the ends, I've put glue on each end after I've tied the knot. And so this one isn't going to move around, and it hangs quite nicely. Another way, with some of my pieces, what I've done is, this is a piece of heavy card. It's actually watercolor paper, and I've stitched this onto it so it can be framed and hung. If you look at the back, hopefully you can see this. I've poked holes in the paper, and I've stitched around to secure it, and it's not coming off. So that's another option. A quick and temporary option is just to use clips. I have a wall in my studio where I can put push pins into the wall. So this is a way that I can hang them up on a temporary basis. And here's yet another way to make a wall hanging with just wire and no wood. So I'm going to take some of this wire, it's 22 gauge, and I've cut a piece and I've shaped it into a triangle that I'd like to fit on top of this piece. Now I'm just going to twist these pieces together and get it ready. So I have my wire bent. If you're worried about the ends catching on something, depending on what you're working on, whether it's snaggy, you can just take a piece of tape and wrap tape around it to enclose the ends, and then it's going to be ready for stitching. So I've just used masking tape to enclose the ends. It probably isn't necessary in my case, but it doesn't hurt. So now it's ready to stitch. This piece of felt, I'm going to stitch all the way around, and I'm going to enclose this part. And that's going to be, the wire that goes across here is going to be all that I have for stability, keeping it straight, because I feel like this piece isn't going to need a piece of wood, that this will be enough. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm coming to the top, and I just want to double check that I haven't stitched through anywhere where I don't want to, and that this is not too tight. It's not pulling the piece and making it curl. It seems like that's all good. So now I'm going to take my wire piece and I'm going to slip it inside. And I'm going to place it. Try and get it in a placement that I think I like. Turn it around and have a look. I think that looks good. I can always bend it a little bit afterwards, so it doesn't have to be exact, but roughly where I want it to be. So the wire isn't quite at the top, it's right along here. And I'm going to hold it with my hand. Just keep checking all the time that I'm not stitching through to the front. And I'm going to stitch the top closed. I'm trying to stitch the wire to this piece of felt without going through the front. And I'm going to continue to wrap this wire onto my black felt. Okay, so that's secure now. This wire is attached to the felt. The felt is attached to the piece. So, making sure that everything feels like it hasn't been twisted or pulled or bent. And it feels good. And this is going to hang without bending, so it's not a heavy piece. So now I'm just going to knot off. The backing on this piece is complete. It's holding its shape. It has its own stiffness, while it's still soft and bendable. But this piece of wire that runs across the back is giving it the stability that it needs. And now it can hang from a hook and it can be displayed. So there we have it.